we're in a different place, and we have a special guest, Mist, and we have a special, not exactly a sponsor, but a recommender, the Wandering Jellyfish. Hello and welcome back. This week I'm excited because I'm reviewing A Forgery of Roses by Jessica Olsen. The fun thing about this book is that it comes out at the end of the month, so we're getting a little sneak peek. Let me tell you guys, this was so engaging. It is a fantasy book, which I don't read a whole lot of, but the cool thing about it is that there's elements of mystery, there's elements of romance. It's pretty securely a YA book. I think some adult readers might still find it kind of engaging just for the plot, and likewise I think some middle grade readers might also find it kind of interesting, maybe a little upper middle grade, just because it's dramatic. So as I said, it's fantasy. It follows Myra, who is a 17-year-old painter, but she is what's called a prodigy, which means that she has the magical ability to make changes by way of her painting. So while she's doing your portrait, if you've got a pimple, she can just smudge that away. If you've got a small cut, she can heal it. But when the governor's wife realizes that she's a prodigy, and mind you, the governor is like very much anti-magic, and we get to learn a little bit of why later on, and I don't want to spoil it for you because A, the book's not out yet, and B, I really think that you're going to find it enjoyable. When the governor's wife finds out about her magic, she kind of on the DL hires her to bring back her son, who has mysteriously died. Everybody says it's an accident, everybody thinks it's an accident, but as Myra kind of gets more involved, she realizes that things aren't as they seem, the governor's family isn't as they seem, and possibly there's foul play afoot. So that's where that mystery element comes in. In trying to figure out the truth, she kind of gets involved with the dead boy's brother, August Harris. And what I love about their relationship is that it's not like that unrealistic high school romance. I mean, they're not in high school, but you know what I mean? We're just, as a reader, you're like, calm down, you're 12. They're not the love of your life, chill. Because Myra has trauma. Her parents have disappeared. She has to take care of her younger sister, who is 13 and a biology prodigy, not the magical kind, just like really, really smart when it comes to biology. And she has this debilitating, mysterious illness that, due to the complexities of the magic system in the book, Myra can't really help with. Like, she certainly can't paint it away. But it's also just super sad because they're so close. And she really only agrees to try to bring back the governor's son, A, because if she doesn't, she'll be outed and possibly thrown in jail, and B, because the governor's wife offers her a huge amount of money, which she's like, oh my gosh, I could use this to get my sister actual medical care. So Myra has trauma, and because of this trauma, she really is hesitant to trust August. And so what I love about their relationship is that you really see the arc of it grow. You see her start to trust. You see her start to really appreciate like who he is. And August is incredibly socially awkward. He's super duper shy. And so when she realizes that just talking to people gives him just insurmountable anxiety and he's willing to face that head on in order to help her, it's so sweet. And I love the development, especially when things kind of recover after a twist. But again, I don't want to give too much away. So I really, really enjoyed the book. I think the only thing that kind of threw me off is that while I recognize that it's a fantasy novel because of magic, and that therefore it doesn't exist in this reality, I would have loved to have a better sense of like when the book took place in terms of time. Because at first, when it starts out with her being a painter, I'm like, oh cool, when were portrait artists really huge? The Renaissance. But then there are mentions of like telephones and kind of just things that are a little bit more modern, but still that have kind of like this old-timey vibe, like they have carriages rather than cars. It just kind of threw me off a little bit, but that's super minor. And then because the book is so layered and nuanced and there's a fairly big cast of characters, at one point in the climax I got a little bit confused because I was like, wait, how did this one character get in this situation? And I think some of that, though, is because the story is told from Myra's perspective. Myra is our narrator, and so we only know what she knows. So this isn't a book where, for the most part, it's not the kind of book that you can put the little like pins together before she does. We learn and uncover and put together the truth as Myra does. So while it was a little bit confusing for me a couple of times just because I wasn't entirely sure where like a character came from, I think it's not enough to like be a flag or anything, because we're seeing the world through Myra's eyes. So those are my two small, very, very small, very neurotic, if you will, critiques. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought the pacing was great. The plot and the characters are phenomenal. I flew through the book in 2 days. It's just so interesting. And I think the ending, there's an epilogue. So if Olsen decides to continue with this world and create a series out of it, I would be definitely very interested to see where that goes, especially when the antagonist is like, this isn't the last you've heard of me, you're not going to get away with this. I'd be really curious to see where it goes from here. So that was A Forgery of Roses. Definitely recommend. I think the only minor flag that I can think of off the top of my head is that with Governor Harris, he's a very abrasive character. So while there aren't any explicit mentions of like child abuse, he's a manipulative man and he's very controlling. So there are kind of allusions to that with his sons because they're scared of him. So there's a little bit of that. And then if you're sensitive to gore, there's a little bit of allusions to gore just because allegedly, wink wink, you can't see with my shades, but allegedly the governor's son fell out of a 4-story window and was possibly stabbed. And so like there's a little bit of description. It's not too gory. I can't think of too many other things. So overall, I'd say this is a pretty flagless book. If you're into fantasy, I think you're definitely gonna like it. If you're into magic, this has got it for you. If you like mystery, if you like romance, like this book has all of that. That said, if none of those things interest you, maybe this isn't your first choice, but I definitely think it's something worth checking out because it's just a really interesting world and I would love to see how it develops more in the future. So again, A Forgery of Roses, it comes out at the end of March. Thank you to the Wandering Jellyfish Bookshop 2 times over, because not only did they hook me up with this book, they also hooked me up with Jane Kuo, her book In the Beautiful Country. This is kind of a middle grade book. I'm not quite sure what it's about yet, so we'll see what it is. On the cover it says a new language, a new land, a new life, so it sounds like it's probably contemporary realistic fiction. If that interests you, be sure to check out the post for next week. In the meantime, happy reading and thanks.